There's a certain kind of loneliness that doesn't look like isolation at all. It's quiet, completely invisible. It hides behind forced laughter, behind manic productivity, behind the casual lie of, "I'm just busy lately." But deep down, there's a dull ache that never really leaves. It isn't the loneliness of an empty room. It's the crushing weight of realizing that no one truly knows you. If you vanished tomorrow, how long would it take for anyone to notice? If something incredible or tragic happened right now, who would you call? The silence grows inside you slowly, not loud, not desperate, but constant, until it alters how you think, how you move, and how you calculate your own worth. People assume those without a social circle are cold, antisocial, or just don't care. But that's rarely the truth. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. They care too deeply. They observe too much. They notice every micro shift in tone, every subtle drop in energy, every hollow smile that never reaches the eyes. Did I say something wrong? Do they want me to leave? After a while, they just start to retreat. Not out of hatred, but because belonging has begun to feel completely unsafe. Psychologically, prolonged detachment triggers the exact same neural pathways associated with physical pain. Your heart rate changes. Your sleep grows light and fractured. Your mind scans for danger in empty rooms. Because to our ancestors, being cast out of the tribe was a death sentence. Today, you can have thousands of followers online and still feel entirely unseen. Because attention isn't proximity, and validation will never be intimacy. Most people who walk alone didn't choose this path overnight. It's not a sudden decision to live in exile. It happens slowly, built from a pile of small, quiet disappointments over the years. You share a piece of your soul and someone laughs. You trust someone with a secret, and they use it as leverage. You try to open up, but you just end up feeling misunderstood. So your brain learns a brutal lesson. It's safer not to try. You stop reaching out. You stop initiating. You start telling yourself you prefer the solitude. And at first, you believe it. Solitude gives you control. It gives you space. But eventually, the quiet turns from healing to haunting, because humans are wired to be mirrored, to be felt, to be validated by another presence. When you go years without that, your internal dialogue becomes a deafening echo chamber. You endlessly replay old memories, old betrayals, wondering, where did I go wrong? Is it me? Am I just broken? In psychology, they call this learned social helplessness. It's the point where you've been rejected so many times that your mind automatically associates reaching out with imminent trauma. Even when you meet kind, genuine people later on, your guard stays up like rusted armor. The quarantine of the mind whispers cruel things when you're vulnerable. You're too much. You're boring. They are just pretending to like you. And you start believing it. You reject yourself before anyone else gets the chance to, protecting your ego at the cost of your soul. Yet, on the surface, you look completely fine. You smile, you work, you post the happy photos. But you're living in two completely separate realities. The hollow version the world sees, and the raw, bleeding one you feel while watching your own life from the outside looking in. But let's look at this with absolute, brutal honesty, a dark dynamic that many of us refuse to admit in the mirror. Have you ever noticed a strange, quiet arrogance hidden inside your isolation? You watch people outside laughing, talking about trivial, superficial things, and a voice whispers, "I don't belong there because I'm too deep. They're too shallow." This is the ultimate psychological trap. You are using your sensitivity as a makeshift throne, a title of nobility to disguise a devastating fear of being rejected. It feels better to believe you are too profound for the world than to admit you are simply terrified of walking into a room and not being liked. You've romanticized your exile, turning a coping mechanism into an elite personality trait. This intellectual defense mechanism completely distorts how you look for human warmth, creating a phenomenon called asymmetric expectation. You aren't actually looking for a human friend. You are looking for a flawless, telepathic savior who only exists in fiction. You demand that a relationship be a perfect 10 out of 10 from the very first conversation, expecting them to read your mind, understand your trauma, and never drop the ball. But the real world doesn't work that way. Real connection is clunky. It starts at a fragile 10%. It is built on awkward small talk, mismatched jokes, and boring details before it ever reaches depth. By setting the bar impossibly high, you ensure that everyone fails, giving yourself the perfect excuse to retreat back into your shell, whispering, "See, no one gets me." We often look at people with hundreds of friends and crave that life, but have you ever looked closely at them? Most of them are just performing. They are trading their authentic identity for a sense of belonging. They applaud jokes they don't find funny and nod at opinions they secretly despise, just so they don't have to face the night alone. Walking alone means you have refused to participate in that collective theater. That is not a failure. It is a privilege. The rare privilege of not having to lie to yourself. You have already done the hardest part by preserving the raw originality of your soul. Your task now isn't to find someone to fill a void, but to slowly unlock the fortress you've built, giving the right people a chance to step inside and see that uncompromised truth. The truth is, prolonged loneliness stops being a prison and becomes a perverse, comforting addiction. Melancholy is safe. It demands absolutely nothing from you. It doesn't ask you to dress up. It doesn't force you to risk your ego, and it never threatens you with emotional bruising. Staying home, overanalyzing old text messages, and nursing your quiet heartbreak is the easiest, most passive choice your subconscious can make. You say you are fine alone, but you've just engineered an environment where your flaws can never be tested. You've chosen the predictable ache of an empty room over the unpredictable risk of an open heart. And the cost of that safety is a universe that shrinks until it is nothing but the sound of your own voice, echoing in the dark. Without someone to share your life with, time itself begins to warp into a heavy, featureless blur. Weekends and holidays stop mattering, because those milestones only exist when they are witnessed by another human being. Minutes stretch into hours when you are trapped inside your own head, instead of moving in the flow of life. Your nervous system has adapted to predict a verdict of rejection before it even happens, dimming your own light just to avoid being noticed by the wrong people, only to realize you've made it impossible for the right ones to ever find you. This distortion separates you from your own ability to believe you could ever belong. But the human mind can break the loop if you have the courage to dethrone your ego. Social trust builds itself back up through tiny, terrifying acts of daily defiance. It means showing up to the boring conversations. It means answering the text instead of curating the perfect, detached response. It means allowing people to see you when you aren't perfectly poised or profoundly deep, letting life touch you again, one messy interaction at a time. Acceptance doesn't require perfection. It just requires presence, the willingness to show up messy, exposed, and real. Those who have survived years of solitude possess an incredible emotional depth. They see the shifts in energy. They know instantly when someone is performing kindness versus being authentic. That's why surface-level relationships will never satisfy your hunger. You crave absolute resonance, but fear it like a death sentence. You build walls with windows, wanting connection, but only on terms of absolute, sterile safety. Because vulnerability feels like walking barefoot across broken glass when you've been ruined before. Many choose to avoid it entirely, claiming they are totally fine alone, but they're just exhausted from being the only one who tries. Why am I always the one reaching out? Why do I have to beg? Yet when you stop trying altogether, you prove your own isolation right, allowing the fear of the unknown to sustain the prison your mind built. Imagine if connection wasn't something you had to earn through a flawless performance. Imagine if alignment was just something you allowed yourself to receive. The people who truly resonate with your soul won't demand a mask. They will feel the quiet in you, not as an awkward absence, but as a beautiful depth. Sometimes the hardest first step isn't making new friends. It's grieving the old versions of yourself who settled for crumbs and called it care. The version that begged for attention and silenced its own truth just to keep a toxic person near. But it also means forgiving yourself for the times you used your loneliness as armor to push good people away. When you heal those desperate defensive parts of your psyche, you stop attracting from hunger, you stop judging from arrogance, and you start connecting from wholeness. And that changes everything. There is a profound freedom that comes when you stop chasing the crowd, but also stop hiding from it. You realize being alone doesn't mean you're broken, nor does it mean you are superior. It means you are simply preparing. Every silent night, every unanswered text, every invisible ache was stripping away the superficial layers of your identity, forcing you to build an inner life so fiercely grounded that when the right people finally appear, you can meet them as an equal, not a hostage to your own fears. Healing takes time. You can't rush it, and you certainly cannot fake it. It starts with learning to speak to yourself the way a kind friend would. When the darkness whispers, "No one cares about you," answer it softly. "That's not true. I'm learning to care for myself." When it says, "You'll always be alone," reply, "I am still open to being found." Your brain listens to the things you tell it. Neural pathways change through slow, deliberate repetition, not miracles. The more you affirm openness, the more your eyes tune in to notice it when it arrives. And it will. This social winter is not a permanent sentence. It is a psychological season that will eventually give way to warmth if you allow your walls to fall. Not having friends right now doesn't make you less human. It just makes your story a little quieter. Some of the greatest minds and creators spent years in total isolation before they ever found belonging. And when they did, it was wiser, deeper, and unshakable, because they had learned to love their own company first. If you are walking through the dark alone right now, please hear this. You are not broken. You are not unworthy of love. You are just in the middle of your becoming. The world hasn't forgotten you. It's simply waiting for you to remember yourself. There will come a day when you will sit across from someone who looks into your eyes and says, "I feel like I've known you forever." And in that exact moment, all those quiet years spent wondering what was wrong with you will finally make sense. You'll realize that your solitude was never a punishment. It was preparation. Every silent night, every unanswered text, every invisible ache was shaping you into someone who could hold a real, deep connection when it finally arrived. You will stop chasing attention and start recognizing pure energy. You'll finally understand that friendship isn't about quantity. It's about recognition. It's that breathtaking moment when two people look past each other's armor and silently think, "You too? I thought I was the only one." That is the truest kind of connection. Built from mutual gentleness, from two souls who have both survived the freezing cold of isolation and decided together that they don't have to perform anymore. Until that day comes, step down from the lonely throne. Walk gently with yourself. Speak kindly to your mind. Remember that even in the quietest, most isolated moments of your life, you are still worthy of being known